I've been asked to go through a couple of questions from Monday's work. So this is from exercise 10.8, looking at questions 7 and 9. So question 7 asks us, a rectangular prism has a square base with a side length of 8 centimetres and a height of 12 centimetres. And then effectively asks us, what's the volume of the prism? So let's think about what that shape actually looks like. The important thing is it's got a square base, and each side is going to be 8 centimetres there. If a square is 8 centimetres, the area of the square is going to be 8 multiplied by 8, 8 squared, which is 64 centimetres squared. Now, if a shape has got an area of 64 centimetres squared, remember the rule for volume is area multiplied by height. So it's going to be 64 multiplied by the height, which is 12 centimetres. So let me just double check my math. 64 by 12 is 768 centimetres squared, and that happens to be one of the options there. So that seems to make pretty good sense. Number 9 is a bit more interesting one. You've got a little bit more scope to do it. Let's have a read of it. A breakfast cereal is to be packaged in a rectangular prism that has a volume of 6,000 centimetres squared. You have to suggest 4 possible sets of dimensions and then decide what's the more convenient. That's up to you to have a talk about. How's that going to fit in the shelf? Are people going to be holded easily? They're the things you're thinking about. But let's just start with one shape. Let's start with the area of the base first. So it's a rectangular prism. So let's say I make one side 5 centimetres and the other 10 centimetres long. If I find the area of that, 5 length by width is 5 by 10, which is 50 centimetres squared. Now we have to work out what the height is. Right, so it's going to have some sort of height. The base is going to be 50 centimetres squared. What's the height going to be? So remember what our rule is. Volume equals area by height. And in this case, we know the volume is 6,000 equals the area, which is 50 times height. Now, maybe I can just scroll down a little bit here to keep going. Here's the kind of tricky little bit that we've got. We want to find what h is, but we've got 50 times h. We want to do the opposite of 50 times h to both sides, so we get h by itself. So we are allowed to do, remember our rule says if we do the balance beam rule, so do something to one side, we're allowed to do it to the other. So let's divide both sides by 50 here, and we're going to get 6,000 divided by 50, I hope is going to be 30, but I will just quietly check that. No, it's 120, I'm not even close. So 120 centimetres equals the height. So this gives us the first set of dimensions. Right, we said we're going to have 5 centimetres by 10 centimetres and 120 centimetres high when we do that calculation. We can now go and change some of those things for some different calculations. We say, well, that's probably, if you had a box that's 1.20 meters high, that's probably a little bit too big to fit into a cupboard. So maybe next time we do 5 centimetres by 20 centimetres and work out what the height is. The question asks you to do 4 sets of dimensions like that. So I hope that helps with those 2 questions.